Welcome to Wildly Wealthy Life, the show that's all about exploring the different paths to a life of freedom and fulfillment and how that ripples through your personal life, family life, and to the community. Join husband and wife power couple Lee and Kat Hughes as they share people's stories from different backgrounds and lifestyles about what it means to live a life well lived. Tune in and take that first step to becoming the best version of yourself, personally and professionally, here on Wildly Wealthy Life.
Call your lenders. Try negotiating with them. Promise you are not the only person to call them this week. You are probably going to spend a few minutes waiting on the phone just to wait for other people who are asking the same questions. So while you want to avoid things like a forbearance on your mortgage because that will hurt your credit score, many lenders are really willing to renegotiate terms because they want to work with you rather than losing you as a customer.
All right, and welcome to another edition of Wildly Wealthy Life podcast. My name is Lee Hughes, and here to my side is my always amazing and awesome wife, Kat. Kat, can you share who we have on today?
Today, we have Carlos Hernandez. Carlos is a 3-time Harvard graduate, earning his MBA and law degree, but turned down a bunch of huge Wall Street job offers to focus more on serving the Latino community, teaching them how to become more financially savvy. He truly believes that wealth is possible for everyone, especially for Latinos who are not afraid of hard work. So I really just love his heart of service that I've so far learned about him, and just excited to chat with him and dive deep into that. So Carlos, nice to meet you, and good to see you here today.
Wow, well, what an intro. Thank you both for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I'm really excited for the chance to get to have a conversation with you both today.
Yeah, excited to just hear about your message more. So can you give us a little bit of a background of where you're at now and what you're doing to, again, just like serve the Latino community, and, you know, how you kind of got to doing this?
Absolutely. So last year, I founded a company called Crediverso, which is a financial products marketplace, online and mobile. And the idea behind it is to give access to financial products to Latino communities who have been traditionally dramatically underserved by the large financial institutions in the country, the credit card issuers, the lenders, the mortgage lenders, all these institutions who, you know, none of their websites, for the most part, are available in Spanish. They don't advertise to Hispanic communities, and they don't design or present their content in a way that is accessible or engaging for the typical Hispanic consumer. So we created this company to try to solve for that problem. And it's been an absolute, labor of love, a lot of work, but I think we're really coming a long ways in the type of work that we're doing. I've loved it because my background is as you mentioned, as a lawyer and in finance. And so this has given me an opportunity to use a lot of that skill set, work with a lot of really interesting people, and get to really go from an industry that is often dominated by a concern for finances on a broader corporate level, and take that and push it into a mission that has a real impact on everyday people. And, you know, the goal here for us is to, if we can be the difference between somebody getting a student loan and being able to go to college, somebody getting a small business loan and being able to start their company or grow their company, or even something as simple as someone saving a couple extra bucks every week to get to do something special on the weekend because they're using their credit cards the right way. That's really what our mission is about. And I'm really excited to get to talk about it and to get to work on that every day.
Yeah, I was on the website earlier, and it's nice because you've got obviously the English-Spanish translation, and it's a service that a lot of people definitely need, because I really think the education behind finance, whether it's personal finance, budget, or just money in kind of general, is really poor throughout like elementary schools, high schools, and whatnot. So you're serving a huge need. I think too, like it's great for the Latino community, but also like the community at large. I think a lot of people would benefit for just going on there, and cause just from the tools and like looking at what you have on there, there's so much information that I could have used, 20 years ago when I got out of high school. And it's just, it's so good.
Yeah. So, Carlos, can you just tell us your journey as far as what made you go at this route when, you have a pretty amazing background where you could have, earned a huge amount of salary, from big companies for like working for Wall Street and all that. What made you, aside from, of course, like you wanted to serve the Latino community, but what was that turn and that spark for you that made you actually go a different direction?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked it because there are a few different things that really have pushed me in that direction. And, it is, you're right, it is always painful to look at the salary you could be earning when in the flip side, all you're doing is pouring your savings into something. But the mission there is kind of what's important to me. So I guess I'll start by saying that, I grew up in a Mexican-American family in Los Angeles. My mother immigrated here from Mexico when she was a teenager. My father was from a Mexican-American family. He was the son of a cop in East LA. And throughout both of their careers in business, and they've been very successful in their own right in business, they always had a very strong connection to community and were driven by contributing and giving back to the Hispanic community. So that really formed a foundation for me in terms of how I was approaching things. And then as I went on through college and grad school and through different jobs, worked as a corporate lawyer in investment banking and private equity. And each one of these organizations that I was in, and they're phenomenal organizations. They do a lot of good, both from a corporate and intellectual standpoint and from a community standpoint. But I kept looking up in the organization to the C-suite. And in none of those organizations did I see anybody who looked like me or had a last name that sounded like mine. And I started to think, if this community is not represented at the executive level of large financial institutions or law firms, then our voice is not being heard. And the corollary of that is that our interests are not being looked out for. So I thought, okay, well, what can I do, given the education I've been lucky enough to receive and the skills that I have to try and rectify the situation. And I can either stay in one of these organizations and work and see if I can get to the top and be a voice in those boardrooms, in those C-suites. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But at the end of the day, that's just one person. Or I can try to create a platform that passes those tools and that information, that education on to as many people as we can possibly reach. And we're lucky enough to live in an age where the internet gives us a phenomenal scope to be able to access a huge amount of people. And then hopefully we can get many, many people into those positions so that the voices are being heard from left and right rather than just from a couple pockets here and there.
That's a great mindset to have and walk away with. What was your family's outlook on finances and money growing up? Because I'm sure that had some kind of impact on you.
Absolutely. Well, I'll, it's funny. I never really, I'm in the personal finance space now, but I never really approached it from that angle, right? I wasn't a personal finance expert to begin with. And, I had a background in corporate finance and but there is a far cry from corporate M&A to how to take advantage of a balance transfer card, right? There's a lot of a big, sharp learning curve there. So I was never the personal finance expert. In fact, I used to get a credit card bill, and I thought it was a really good thing when I would see right there next to my balance, it would say outstanding. And
nice. Because outstanding is usually a good word, right? You're an outstanding guy.
Yeah. And I would think that like the average American, for example, has something like $7,000 in an outstanding credit card balance. Yep. From that aspect, I am way above average.
And a lot of Americans are way above average as well.
Exactly. So, I'm just kind of joking around there, but the way we approached handling money kind of growing up is that, it's all about how hard you're willing to work, right? And my dad he told me something when I was a lot younger, this kind of stuck with me, which is that, and I think it's a great quote. He said, do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so whether that is a small job that you're not being paid for, a big job that you're being paid a lot for, as long as you're willing to work hard, that's what matters. And I think what we're trying to do with this platform is that, the Hispanic community in the U.S. is the most entrepreneurial community around. They start more small businesses every year than any other ethnic group. And so the difference is that they just traditionally have not had the level of access to information about how to get a small business loan, how to take advantage of tax shelters, things like that, that are available to other communities. And so by giving them the access, we let them continue to do whatever it takes to get the job done, but with the right tools to go further.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of going back to Lee's question with the upbringing, because I believe from like what I know of your story is that your family is pretty affluent when it comes to, you know, the business and all that stuff. I believe your dad is part of the Telemundo network. Is that correct? And from what I know is that you were in a private school setting, but then somewhere in 8th grade, they really intentionally actually put you into more of a public school setting to get you exposed. What was that like for you to kind of go from, you know, more of a private setting and maybe people that are more in your same financial background to now going into a public school setting, and how has that affected you growing up with your heart of service now?
Well, that's a really funny question. There's a lot of good stories I could share with you. I guess I'll start with I'm glad you mentioned that, you know, that the family background. I think a big part of the reason why I am pursuing what I did is because of that long history of involvement with the Hispanic community. My dad, for a long time, was the chairman and CEO of Telemundo, which is one of the 2 major Spanish language networks in the country. So that has very much guided what I've done with my career. But to answer your question is with regards to switching schools like that. So when I was young, we lived in a suburb of Los Angeles. It was predominantly white. We were one of the only Hispanic families in the area, and we went to I don't know, probably pretty swanky little private school, and very good academically. But again, you know, one of the only Hispanic families, or I think we were probably the only Hispanic family in my class, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to, you know, experience other cultures. And at that age, you know, you don't even notice. But when I was in 8th grade, we made, as you mentioned, the deliberate decision to leave schools, and we went to it wasn't another private school, but it was in the middle of downtown LA. And I think if you looked at tuition, all the you guys have spent time in LA, I believe, so you probably are aware of what the private school tuitions are there. They can be like $30,000 a year. Yep. I think when I was going to this school, tuition was like $2,500 a year, right in the middle of downtown LA. It definitely was a very different demographic than what the school we were attending prior was made up of. And it was one of the best things that I think I could have done. And I absolutely plan on sending my kids there when I have them. Because you no longer are surrounded by people who are all from one neighborhood with one mindset and one community, which again is not a bad thing. But I think there is benefit to. So that high school was located in the middle of downtown LA, and Los Angeles is a huge city. I think there's something like 12 or 13 million people. And so what happens because of that is that we pulled students from all over the city, and that is from, you know, some of the more affluent suburbs, some of the beach communities, all the way to right next to the high school where the student is going there because his dad is the janitor on campus, right? And you see everything along that spectrum. And so all of a sudden the community around you changes from being pretty homogenous to different languages being spoken, different everything, right? That you can imagine what that looks like. And so that absolutely changed my perspective. And again, I think the real takeaway is that all that matters is how hard you're willing to work. As long as you have access to the tools that will let you do that work, all that matters is how hard you're willing to work.
Wow, that's awesome. I just love that story. It's kind of such a good like turning point for you too, just because now you see like a bigger picture, and being able to see a bigger picture allows you to, right now with what you're doing, really helps you kind of address the needs, right? Because you're now not just exposed to just one really small part of the community, but really you're seeing a bigger picture. What is your idea of wealth now, and how has that evolved over time?
That's a great question. And I think when I think about wealth, there is one quote that kind of sticks with me, and it's by a gentleman named George Lorimer, who was a journalist back in kind of the post-depression era in the U.S. And he said on money is that it is good to have money and the things that money can buy, but it is good too to check up once in a while and make sure that you haven't lost the things that money can't buy. And that's kind of the way I approach trying to generate wealth and managing money now, because there's so much that you can get distracted with in the pursuit of wealth and trying to get that next job and that next promotion and that next paycheck. But really what is going to matter at the end of the road when you are surrounded just by the people that you love is the quality and the strength of relationships that you've been able to develop and the value and impact that you've had on those around you and the community around you. Really, at the end of the day, I view money as a measure of the value that you create, and that's it. It's the impact that you're able to have on people around you.
And what kind of, I mean, I know that you've got quite a few years of experience in the financial realm and with Crediverso being about a year old. Is that correct?
Less than a year. Yeah, we are live after up to almost, I think, 15 or 20 employees or so after just being around for about 9 months. So we're moving quickly, growing fast, but there is a lot more runway for us to cross.
Cover,
yeah. And in that, what kind of, talking about, wealth and whatnot, and your ability to help people, what are some examples of maybe success stories or when you brought on this team or created this team that you're working with, have you seen any of them like just grow in different ways?
Absolutely. Well, one of the interesting things is that I have to keep reminding myself this, but we launched during the COVID pandemic, right? And that is that's a story in and of itself. I can share a lot of more stories from within that. But I think one of the nice things that has come of that is that because we are a growing company and we're doing well and we have a social mission that is very important and appeals to the interests of a lot of people, on top of having just being in a sector that is phenomenally interesting in the fintech space, we have been in the fortunate position to be able to bring on a lot of new employees recently. So I think over the past 2 weeks, we brought on 7 new team members. And so that is, many people have been furloughed, many people have lost their jobs, many people have even just our internship team, they had internships lined up. And, that stuff falls through during the pandemic, but we've been able to bring a lot of those folks on. So that's internally how I think we've kind of been affected. And I think it's important to continue to try to employ people and, look at your direct community. But as I look externally and the type of things we're doing, there are a few different ways where we're trying to help. So we're consistently putting out what I would call educational resources on the things that probably are really top of mind for a lot of folks right now. I mean, many people have lost their jobs or been furloughed during the pandemic. And so we have educational resources going out like what happens when I miss a credit card payment, for example. What do I do? What are my, where is it going to negatively impact me? How can I minimize the extent of that negative impact? What are some tips I should take to bring down my credit card payments? What can I do if I can't pay my mortgage? Things like that. So there's some educational tools. And then beyond that, this is at least a demographic that we're specifically targeting. Language is an issue, as you mentioned. And so this is a time where you're having to very frequently go through these complicated terms and conditions and getting letters about balance statements, and beyond just figuring out whether outstanding is a good thing or a bad thing. If you don't know what the word outstanding means in your language, then that's a whole nother problem on its own. And so we have a glossary on our website that, as far as I know, is the only place where you can find these complicated financial terms explained in both languages in a way that is actually approachable and engaging, beyond just being a dictionary definition that says, okay, what's a cross collateralization? See this other really complicated term that you're not going to understand.
Yeah. It was really just going through the website. Yeah, it was really nice seeing, because I scrolled through like in Spanish. I don't know a ton of Spanish, but I know a little bit. And then going into English, and just like the ease and the access to that site is really awesome. So just from someone on the outside looking in, like really awesome. Like you guys are doing really great work. And I know that we shared some of our cards that we were using with you. You want to explain how somebody could use their credit cards and kind of get an analysis done, or?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, one of the fun things that we've kind of gotten into now is that we have a credit card comparison platform on our site, right? And the idea is that not everybody is in a position where you can go out and ask for a raise or get a second job or grow your income. And, maybe you are even operating, as many people are, with less income than normal right now. So if you can take the same amount of money that you had previously and do more with it, that's the idea behind learning about how to use credit cards. So that's what our website is designed to do, to help you figure out how to maximize balance transfers, how to use those points, things like that, in a way that is simple and approachable. So, for example, if I were to ask you guys, what are the credit cards that you have in your wallet right now that you use the most? What are a couple of the names that you throw out there?
For us, it would be a lot of the Chase cards. We have the Chase Freedom Unlimited for the 1.5 points, Chase Sapphire Preserve, and Chase Sapphire Reserve. Those are the main credit cards that we pretty much use.
Sure. Okay, so those are great cards, and this is I get all the information about these cards from our website. We have fantastic contributing authors who've been featured everywhere from Forbes to CNBC, all these great places. If I'm remembering correctly, the Chase cards are great, and so when I think of the cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Chase Sapphire Preferred, for example, so those are Chase Sapphire Reserve. That's a pretty high-end card. It's a great card for frequent travelers. It has a high annual fee. So the high annual fee is $550, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because you get a lot of perks from having that card. So for example, you get a $100 application fee credit to Global Entry or TSA Pre. You get complimentary Lyft Pink. You get a complimentary Dash Pass. And not only that, but you get a ton of points. I think the sign-up bonus is something like 50,000 points after you spend the first $4,000. You get 3 times points on travel. So these are all really good things, right? And the thing you want to think about with having that high-end travel card right now is that we're in lockdown. I don't know about you guys. A big trip for me is walking around the block right now. So does it make sense to have these travel cards right now? And the way that we generally have been giving guidance is the first thing you can do is get them on the phone, call up Chase, and say, hey, this is a very expensive card. I have a high annual fee here. What can you do for me? And they, depending on how you navigate the conversation, they will in many cases give you a retention bonus to keep you on board and make sure you don't leave. That bonus can often be something like $100. If you can start to chip away at that annual fee, that's great. There's $100 right off the bat. The other thing you can do, and this generally as one person, you are not allowed to have the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which is the lower annual fee card of $95. Because you're a couple, I imagine one of you has one of you have the other. But in the case of someone who has just one of those cards, call it the more expensive version, you can think about whether you want to downgrade to the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which, as I mentioned, only has an annual fee of $95. So the benefit of downgrading is that you don't get the negative impact of canceling a card on your credit score, but the drawback is that you can't take advantage of the welcome bonuses. So the Chase Sapphire Preferred has some really nice welcome bonuses as well. I think it actually even has a higher sign-up bonus of 60,000 points than the Chase Sapphire Reserve. When you downgrade, you'll be saving $455 on the annual fee, and you won't cancel. The thing you want to think about when you're canceling credit cards is that it can impact your credit score in 2 ways. One, the length of your credit history can be affected. So if you guys have had these cards for a long, long time and you cancel one of them, your average length of credit history will go down. It'll be shorter. So that can negatively impact it. The other thing is basically your debt ratio. So if you have, for example, a total credit limit of $10,000 and you have $1,000 of that outstanding, and you cancel your Chase Sapphire Reserve, which had that $1,000, which you didn't have any balance on, and your other card still has $1,000, your credit limit will go down, but your utilization ratio will go up, and that will negatively impact your credit score.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, these are really, really great. Especially, I think the main takeaway for me right now for that is that, we've had the Chase Sapphire Reserve for a while now, and we love it. We've honestly really made I think we made a good choice with that one because we really have been able to travel for free a lot with that card, which is really, really great. But right now, yeah, we're not traveling, so we're
racking up
paying.
points.
we're saving the points, sure, but we're basically, you're right. We're paying for the annual fee that is a high amount, but we're not really taking advantage of that card right now. So really great tip there for all of our listeners who have this credit card to see if you could call. That's literally what I would do after we do this podcast sometime today. I will call them and be like, hey, can I get a retention bonus or something? Because I don't want to keep paying this annual fee right now because we're not using it. So thank you for that. That's a really, really good tip. Wow.
Yeah, and I also like that on the website, you have everything laid out. Like you said, you have all the different cards. You have all the different cards and the breakdown of what those individual points and everything are. Because when we did our research, I shouldn't say we, when Kat did the research on the different cards that we have, she really had to take so much time in balancing out the research between the different cards and going to this website and then going to that website. And you've done this awesome gift of compiling everything in one nice, easy to find spot that's very easy to understand.
It's time saver, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I certainly can't take all. I certainly can't take all or really any of the credit there. I've written a few of these articles, but the majority have been written by our content editorial team. And the reason for that is that we, first of all, they're the experts. I'm not the experts. But beyond that, we want to make sure that this is always, these are unbiased reviews, right? So, the way that this business model works is that in our case, we will never make a penny off of you guys. We will never make a penny off of the Hispanic consumer. All our business model, all of our revenues come from the partner institutions, so the credit card issuers. And because we want to make sure that our reviews that we're writing are unbiased by the fact that we may be getting a commission for one set of cards, you're not getting a commission from another set of cards, but still want to make sure that the information that's being presented to the end consumer is totally fair and unbiased. The editorial team, they're the ones that write those reviews, and they don't know what those commission structures look like. There's a wall there, there's a firewall there. So that's how we make sure that things continue to be unbiased and fair.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. That's really awesome. What I love though is how you said, well, you're not the expert, but you have, people that write for you that are the experts. However, you're the one who has the foresight to put all this together, so I just want to give credit to that because though, a lot of us are not experts in pretty much a lot of the fields that we kind of, have around us, but a lot of the people who are leaders are the ones that have the foresight to put together a team of experts and then give that information out to the public. So thank you for doing that because, again, it's not just about being the expert, it's about you leading the way for experts to come together to make information available.
Yeah, could you explain a little bit how you gather your team?
Absolutely. So we are in an interesting position of trying to cross a few different fields together. So when I say fintech, that's financial technology, and that's basically using technology to enable the provision of services in the finance space in a more efficient and far-reaching way. So we have finance, we have tech, and then we have this third component, which is this language, culture, different demographic that has not been addressed by the traditional financial institutions. So what we've done is try to pull people from all three of those sectors. And it's ended up creating a phenomenal team and a really diverse team. So we have a set of engineers that are based in Mexico, all Mexican. We have a set of designers, so that's like web design. It's a Dominican based in New York. And then we have a marketing team that is predominantly comprised of women, Hispanic women, really, really wonderful team based in Los Angeles. And let's see, I'm trying to think. Our intern team, this is fantastic. So we have a lot of different accents being spoken on our intern team right now. I think we have someone from Chile, someone from Mexico, someone from South Korea, Thailand, someone from Connecticut, and I'm probably missing a couple. I think we just gave an offer to someone from Taiwan. So we have a phenomenally diverse team. We have more women, many more women than men working on the project, and I think we have maybe one Caucasian male. I think probably. We need more to balance it out at this point.
Yeah. So I love that you are serving the underserved, right? Like you're serving the Latino community that's really heavily underserved when it comes to financial education. That's one. But also two, you are employing minorities, and giving opportunities to minorities, which is just so awesome. Thank you for doing that, especially in this time where it's COVID-19 again, in the whole just in the general scope of what's happening right now. A lot of people are out of work, and you are pushing forward and making opportunities available for people to actually get some work done. So that's really awesome. What other areas of your community are you passionate about serving?
That's a really good question. And just quickly before I jump into that, I mean, what you mentioned there is just so important because the last set of unemployment numbers, I think we have them from April now, it said that the unemployment rate for Latinos was at 18.9%, which is nearly 1 in 5 who are unemployed, whereas the general market, I think, is something like 14.2% for non-Hispanic whites. So there's a huge gap there, and these minority groups have been disproportionately affected. So, what little we can do by trying to hire, I think is important, but really the impact I think we'll have on a larger scale is the consumer-facing side of the business. But the whole hope there is that this is a product that is designed and built by the people who it is intended to serve, and that's what many of the competitors can't say just by the way their infrastructure is designed. So that's hopefully one competitive advantage we'll continue to have. In regards to other areas of the community that I'm hoping to help, one area one effort that I made before the pandemic all started and it became a little more difficult to get out of the house, there is an organization called 9 Dots that's in Los Angeles. And I've been helping out with that organization for a while over the past few months prior to the pandemic. And what they strive to do is to offer education and resources in tech for minority communities, especially for children in elementary and middle school. So when I look at the broader education curriculum in the US right now, there is a lot that is missing. I mean, I can go on for a long time about why personal finance should be covered in middle school and high school. But beyond that, our entire industrial landscape is shifting so dramatically in terms of the necessity for STEM education. And these are just often not skills that are taught in public school curriculum. So coding, for example, I would have been so well served by having learned coding at a young age. And I think, I was designing websites in middle school just using the tools I had available to me and messing around. And I think I made something like a Beanie Babies fan page when I was in 6th grade. So it was nothing that was technologically as sophisticated as it absolutely should have been because I didn't have access to that coding information. So this organization, 9 Dots, they do a fantastic job of teaching hardcore coding to really young kids. And the stuff that they're producing, I mean, you know how quickly kids learn these days. It's fantastic, and it's totally priming them for careers in tech, in Silicon Valley, in Silicon Beach, where I'm located, where our offices are. So it's they do a really good job of that. I'm glad to be able to support them wherever I can.
That's awesome. And it's 9 Dots, 9dots.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Could you also share for the listeners in that, do you have 3 actionable tips that our listeners could walk away with?
Absolutely. And, if you'll indulge me, I think the way I'd probably like to approach that is, I imagine half of this listenership is going to have been very affected, or maybe, more given the statistics I've seen, will have been very affected by the pandemic. So let me start by giving some information for people who have been affected by the pandemic, and then maybe those who have been a little bit luckier and haven't had as large of an impact on their personal financial situation. So for those who've been affected by the pandemic, I think the first thing everybody looks at is whether they want to take out a loan. And taking out a loan can be really helpful, but especially during tough economic times, but it should never be the first option. In fact, what I would recommend, the first thing to do is number one, take a hard look at your budget and make whatever cuts you can. So have a conversation with everyone in the family, look at the streaming services that you're not using, maybe cook instead of getting takeout. That's step number one, absolutely, before you start looking at things like loans. And this is to circle back to that unbiased point. Our business model is built on people taking out loans. So here I am telling you not to take a loan, but I think it's important to have that perspective. Number two is get advice. We have a lot of good resources on the website. We have information on how to get in touch with a financial counselor, things like that. So that's number two. And it's, many people don't have the depth of experience in personal finances, folks like you guys do. So it's just getting a feel for that landscape is very important. Number three, and this is a really important one, call your lenders. Try negotiating with them. I promise you, you are not the only person to call them this week. You are probably going to spend a few minutes waiting on the phone just to wait for other people who are asking the same questions. So while you want to avoid things like a forbearance on your mortgage, because that will hurt your credit score, many lenders are really willing to renegotiate terms or to put you on a payment plan because they want to work with you rather than losing you as a customer. And so then the last tip for people who have been affected here is that if you are going to look at loans, please stay away from payday lenders and cash advances on your credit card. You can end up paying really high interest rates, and there are much easier and cheaper options. One of the best things you can do is look at balance transfer credit cards, and there's a lot of information on this on our website. If you have a lot of outstanding credit card debt, for example, there are credit cards that let you transfer your outstanding balances to them, and you can pay a much lower interest rate or even no interest for up to a year. You'll pay a small fee up front, and you want to do the math to see whether that fee is worth it, but it, in many cases, is worth it in the long run, depending on how high your balance is. But you may want to edit a bit there.
All good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. These are really great tips, especially in this current times that we're living in right now. So thank you for sharing that. That's really, really awesome. That's definitely something that I know we're going to take away with is calling also our credit card companies.
It's always a fun process.
Yeah, it's always a fun and long
what
way.
can you do for us? Huh? You're paying this money. What's going to happen on the other side?
So the second side of that, just to take another second here, is for folks who maybe have been in the lucky situation of not having lost their job and they still have good steady streams of income, there are things you can do to take advantage of what's happening in the broader economic climate. And the first recommendation there would be turn your expenses into savings. So the way to do that is, look at all the places that you are not spending money right now, where prior to all this, when life was back to normal, you were out buying coffee at Starbucks, you were going to the gym and had gym membership fees, which have been generally frozen right now. Take that money and build up an emergency fund. You want to have an emergency fund of 2 to 3 months all the time, and this is a great time to build that if you're in that situation. Number two, try to get ahead on things like student loans. So payments on most federal student loans are suspended right now through, I think, September 30th, and that's interest-free. So that means you can take all the payments that you would make between now and then, and they'll go directly towards the principal of your loan, which would absolutely save you money down the line. That's number two. And then number three, which is another quick one, is, well, maybe not so quick, but quick to mention. Try to take advantage of this to refinance your mortgage. So mortgage rates right now are about 1% lower than they were a year ago. So even if you're a new homeowner and you took your mortgage out last year, you can refinance, and that 1%, even if that's all it is, and in many cases it'll be bigger, that'll go a long ways, especially over the course of your mortgage.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, thank you. This has been awesome.
We got 6 tips.
Yeah, we got 6 tips. This is awesome.
Told you I wasn't a finance expert. I can barely count, it sounds like.
It's all about abundance here. That's why.
Yeah, totally.
Multiply 100%. All right. Well, we are now down to our quick 10 rapid fire questions. And these are questions we ask all of our guests. Some of them are related to our podcast theme, and some of them are just random things we want to know about our guests. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, and we'll keep it short and quick. Are you ready?
Ready to go. Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, if you could choose one book to live by, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, one book to live by. I'd probably, being a Catholic schoolboy, have to choose the Bible.
Sounds great. I love that.
Personal hero, living, deceased, someone you know or don't know.
Personal hero, hands down, Bruce Lee. I think he took his platform. Looks like I'm not the only one.
It's like my number one and number two answer for myself too.
I've been fascinated with him because he took what he was best at and turned it into a platform where he brought cultural and ethnic understanding to a really broad range of people. And I think he did so much for the Chinese community, so much for his space was martial arts. But I think if you have an expertise in anything and you can use it to bring understanding to people and familiarity and bridge that cultural divide, I think that's a phenomenal thing, and that's why he's a big hero of mine.
Yeah,
Awesome.
wow, that's awesome. Number 3, the one thing you intentionally have to do every single day.
I'd probably say talk to the people that I care about the most, and which is probably the more boring answer. And then exercise. I love to exercise. So got to go on a run, got to get a swim and do something.
That's good.
Nice.
That's good. One hobby that brings you the most joy.
I love rock climbing. I was out yesterday. They finally opened up the state parks, and they were totally empty. It was great. And so I was out in Malibu Creek State Park, and it's such a pure sport. A little dangerous sometimes, but a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love that. Most rewarding thing you've done for someone in need.
I think rewarding in terms of the amount of effort we've put into it, and I've put into it, and hopefully the impact it will have has just been building this company and getting it launched. I'm really proud of everything our team has done, and I'm really excited about all the different products we're going to offer, from comparing different ways to send money, to getting a credit check, to comparing credit cards and loans. The potential impact I hope to have from a generational wealth standpoint for this community is potentially huge, and I'm really excited to get that, to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
It's awesome. First movie quote that comes to mind.
First movie quote that comes to mind. Give you one I think you'll like here, Lee. I don't know if it's potentially from a movie, but it definitely was from a movie actor. Be like water, my friend.
Be like water, my friend. All right. That's awesome. Last big purchase you made for yourself.
I don't make a lot of big purchases. Most of what I enjoy doing can be done for free, either in the ocean or in a national park. So last big purchase, probably surfboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
That counts. That's perfect. Food you cannot live without.
Tacos, 100%. I wish you guys could see the thread I have with our CTO right now. It is probably about 40% work, 60% pictures of tacos I've made this week.
That's awesome.
Hard shell or a soft shell?
And we're recording on a Tuesday for Taco Tuesday, so this is perfect.
Okay. Oh, so hard shell or soft shell?
Got to go soft shell and got to go corn tortilla.
Got
Get that stuff out of here.
Okay. I grew up in the Philippines, and over there we only had hard tacos. I don't know why. I grew up in hard tacos. I only ate hard tacos growing up, and then when I went to the States, I was like, what are these soft shell tacos? Like, I literally was so mind blown. I was like, what are these things? I did not know that it could come in a soft shell.
Well, you probably have some good restaurant recs for me for some hard shell tacos. I've never gotten into them. My whole family loves them, and yeah, soft shell.
All right. What is your spirit animal?
Spirit animal, probably my golden doodle, Barkley.
Golden doodle Barkley?
Yeah, that's her name, my golden doodle.
Oh, that's so cute.
She's the one who's
picturing the dog. It's like awesome. Okay. All right, number 10. Finish this sentence. If I'm stuck in an island by myself, ... If
I'm stuck in an island by myself, probably stay around for a while. I like being on an island.
Yep, as long as you have your surfboard with you,
as long as I've got a good surf break. Stick around. I'm not in any rush.
Cut a tree down, make one. If you don't
have. Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us here today, Carlos. It's just been such an awesome time chatting with you. We have 2 more parting questions for you. One is, where can our listeners find out more about you? And number 2, if you were to encourage our listeners to serve or give into something, what would that be?
Sure. So to answer the first question, I think the easiest place to get information is on our website, which is crediverso.com, crediverso.com. We also have a facebook.com/Crediverso, and on Instagram, we're at Crediverso. So those are the easiest ways. If you want to find information on me, although I'm probably a little less exciting, it's linkedin.com/CP Hernandez. And I think, one thing I always like to say is that please feel free to reach out to me, whether it is something you want to talk about, industry related, non-industry related, or even just a personal finance question. If I don't know the answer, I can always point you to one of our experts who does, or some resources that we have. So that's always a good way to get a hold of me or somebody on the team. In terms of places to get involved, I can list off some organizations. I think 9 Dots is a really good one, but honestly, I think just look around a little closer than that. There are a lot of people in need who are very close by, and that could be within your family, and trying to, even if it's something as simple as making that phone call, like you said, to the card company and asking for a retention bonus on somebody else's behalf, that can be easily done. But we are in, as I hear on the news 100 times a day, unprecedented times, and the need of many people, and you don't have to look far, is great. And so you don't have to go far to make an impact right now.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. It has been wonderful chatting with you. We really love our time with you. Thank you. That was a very, very inspiring chat we just had with Carlos Hernandez. I was so inspired by the fact that he really intentionally turned down high-paying jobs, not looking at the money that he could possibly earn, but instead looked at what he could do to really serve the underserved community of the Latino community. And also right now with what's happening in the pandemic that we're all experiencing, is that he is literally making jobs for people and allowing people to be hired. So creating opportunities, basically.
Yeah, I really like that aspect. Like, in a time where businesses are failing, things are shutting down, he's hiring and doubling his staff on a monthly basis. That is just incredible. And I just really love his actionable tips too. So it's really fun.
Yeah, really great. Well, if you love this episode, make sure that you share it with one person that you think will get impacted by it. Go ahead and rate us and review us on iTunes. We would appreciate that. And for next week, we have Roger Godwin. Roger is just someone that I met through a real estate investment meetup, and I was just so impacted by his story. He is into wholesaling real estate deals, and he has really been successful in his particular specific field. And what I love is just his heart of service. He goes to Kenya, and he basically equips leaders over there and helps them to make sure that they can also establish businesses for themselves, so that they can really move forward, and not just giving them fish, but actually teaching them how to fish. So really love that about Roger, and hope you tune into that episode as well.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope that this episode has helped you take another step towards living fully, giving freely, and building a legacy that deeply impacts your community. We'd love to hear what you think about today's show. Please leave us a review or like us on iTunes and YouTube, and click the subscribe button so you won't miss a show. You can also visit us at wildlywealthylife.com for today's show notes. See you on our next episode. Thank you, and may you live a wildly wealthy life.